The US 2026 midterm elections promise to be one of the most momentous in recent US history. Donald Trump is threatening the very pillars of American democracy. Republicans controlling the Senate and House and the Supreme Court are rubber stamping his policies. Opposition Democrats are considered too weak and too vested in the system to stand up to him and his cronies. But a new band of progressive Democrats are rising up to challenge the status quo. One of them is Joey Rzevich. He's a former basketball player from the same south suburbs of Chicago, rather southwest suburbs, where I grew up. He is challenging an incumbent, Sean Casten, a Democrat who's been criticized for being too cozy with the Israel lobby and too comfy with his own power. I'm Borzu Deragahi. This is the Badlands newsletter podcast. You can subscribe at borzu.substack.com. It should be right here in the video here. And so with us now is Joey. Joey, why did you decide to run for Congress?
Well, first of all, thank you for having me. I appreciate it. I wouldn't be running for Congress if things were going well. So America is in crisis, both economically and morally. And I think that those issues are tied. We're always told that we never have enough money for public education, public transportation, universal health care, but we constantly have money for war, genocide, and corporate bailouts. And I think that this is because we have very corrupt politicians. The special interest donors, be they corporations or foreign influence lobbies, have full control of the United States Congress. And so the American dream is completely slipping away from my generation, and I'm trying to fight back against it. Additionally, I was sick to my stomach watching the genocide in Gaza over the last 2.5 years. And I was born and raised in the 6th district of Illinois, which is where I'm running for Congress. And the 6th district contains the largest number of Palestinian Americans than any other congressional district in the entire United States. This is number one. So for the current representative, Sean Casten, to stand so stridently against or with Israel during their genocide, despite the cries and the pleas of his Palestinian constituents, I felt was acceptable. And because nobody else was running against him, I figured I would step up and try to do my part to make a change.
That's really interesting. But I mean, how did you get into politics at all? I mean, what is your, how did you go from being a
Yeah.
professional basketball player in Europe, as I understand it, to enter? And you're a cool jock. You are very articulate. Obviously, you're extremely presentable. I'm sure you have a great career. Why politics? Why not finance? Why not I don't know, medicine or something?
Yeah, so I played 2 years of basketball in Germany. I wasn't really able to crack into the higher levels of the professional game, and I'm a software engineer by training.
Mm.
And I was doing software engineering while I was playing basketball. I was doing machine learning research for a subcontractor of the Department of Defense, and I just
Mm.
decided that I was missing too many life events to continue to play overseas. And I've always been interested in politics. Since 2008, the global financial crisis, my dad was a federal employee at the time, and that was the first time I saw the government simultaneously freeze all federal employee salaries for 3 years, no cost of living raise, no nothing, while simultaneously giving out multi-million-dollar golden parachutes to the same bankers that caused the crisis in the first place. That's when I realized that things were deeply corrupt and I needed to start paying attention. Growing up, you're surrounded by politics no matter what, especially during my youth. We experienced the 20 years of Afghanistan and Iraq, and I had friends who had brothers and cousins and that were sent over there to die. And if they didn't die, they came back with severe PTSD, and they were left hanging with no ability to be treated by the VA. So outside of that, Bernie Sanders really captured my attention first. He was the first politician to not speak like a politician, and it really motivated me to get involved. And when his nomination was stolen from him by the Democratic Party and given to Hillary Clinton via the super delegate system, that's when I realized, okay, I need to figure out where the levers of power really lie, because the surface level of politics does not give you a clear picture of how the world works. And as an engineer, I'm always interested in how understanding how things work, the systems that govern our lives, and politics affects every single aspect of our lives, whether you know it or not. So I studied it like it was a college class. I was reading books, I was taking notes, I was listening to lectures and podcasts. And I always figured I would want to get involved in politics because they're just human beings making decisions for the rest of the human beings in the world. And I figured it would be a good idea to be one of those people making decisions, because the current group is making horrible decisions. So I'm not the greatest in the world at anything, but I'm better than the current representatives, is what I feel. So, I thought down the line, when I had made some money doing software engineering, I would be able to fund my own run for office. However, again, the genocide in Gaza motivated me. And it was really on my birthday 2 years ago, February 25th, 2024, was the day that Aaron Bushnell, the 25-year-old United States airman, self-immolated in front of the Israeli consulate in DC. And it was gut-wrenching. So I asked myself, okay, if this young man is willing to sacrifice his life in such a painful way, what am I willing to sacrifice to try to make things stop? I'm out protesting with tens of thousands of other people in downtown Chicago. There's millions of us all over the world, and our elected leaders are just ignoring us. We have no influence over their decision making. So the only way to really change anything is to hold a position of power yourself.
But
And
I
so that's
mean,
why I decided to go after federal.
one of the reasons why people are so cynical is because, no matter who they vote for, as the joke goes, no matter who they vote for, they get John McCain. No one,
Yeah.
they vote for no more, Middle East wars. They watch what's happening in Gaza. They protest. They vote, and they vote for a candidate. Even like Donald Trump, he said that he's for 10, 15 years, 20 years, he's been talking about no war with Iran, and then all of a sudden, he launches this war this weekend that it could change the dynamics of everything. I mean, is there a reason to just be cynical? What can electoral politics accomplish?
That's a great question. Man, there is reason to be cynical. Certainly, the people that we've put our faith in the past have failed us. For example, I volunteered for Andrew Yang's campaign in 2019. And then when it came down to it, he got the call from the Democratic Party. A lot of reporting said that Obama was making calls, and Amy Klobuchar dropped out, Pete Buttigieg dropped out, Andrew Yang dropped out, and they all endorsed Biden when Bernie had the momentum. And he won Iowa and New Hampshire, and South Carolina was coming up. So that was,
We just lost the audio there.
and
Yeah, sorry. Go ahead.
oh, okay.
But now
So
it's
that was a
back.
step. Okay. So there is reason to be cynical, but I feel like there is a new wave of candidates that are genuinely grassroots, and that's the big difference. It's who is funding all of these candidates. Whether it's Democrat or Republican, very likely they have the same donor network, and they're establishment thinking individuals. So what we need are really revolutionary leaders in this moment to fight back against the Democratic establishment. Because it's the leadership class and the donors of the Democrats that are making all of the decisions. And then the middle tier Democrats, which I believe Sean Casten, my opponent, is, they just go along with whatever they're told to do. They have no interest in pushing for legislation themselves. They just want to maintain the position that they're in, get a nice salary, maybe do some insider stock trading, and get a nice board seat when they exit office. But we have candidates now who are really of my generation, and maybe even millennials as well, because like I'm on the cusp of Gen Z and millennial. Um, there are candidates who are within like 10, 15 years of me running all over the country that have been forced to run because of the dire situation that we've been
Yeah,
put in by our leadership class. I mean, so I really got to give this example. The
sure.
real inflation that we are dealing with is so significant, people have no idea. The purchasing power of the dollar. In 1971, that was the last year that the US dollar was on the gold standard, and a minimum wage job earned you about $60 per week. Gold was $35 an ounce. You could buy roughly 1.85 ounces of gold with a minimum wage job
Yeah,
in 1971. Today, gold is over $5,000 an ounce. You would need over $10,000 to buy the
goodbye.
same amount of gold that you could with a minimum wage job in
Yeah.
1971. That is why we are being forced to run for office. And so these candidates, I think, are a glimmer of hope, are a silver lining that things have gotten so bad. Now we have some genuine grassroots, anti-corruption, anti-war candidates running for office that could actually make a change. And
I'd like to go
yeah,
ahead.
go ahead. Go ahead.
I'd like to ask you about that, the campaign part. I just first wanted to just asking you about the news of the day. What was your reaction when you woke up, or when you went to bed? I don't know when you found out, Saturday morning or Friday night, that the U.S. was at war with the Islamic Republic of Iran.
Um, Heartbreak, because I know that American soldiers are going to be sent to die, and I think six of them already have, for a war that is 100% on Israel's behalf. Because Iran, I know that Iran has is no threat to the United States at this point in time. They do not have a nuclear weapon. They are not seeking a nuclear weapon. The Ayatollah Khamenei stated multiple times that a nuclear weapon was deeply against the religion that they were following. So there was no desire for a nuclear weapon. It was always enrichment for the purposes of negotiation tactics. It's very well documented by Scott Horton, who wrote the book Enough Already.
Interesting.
And even if they did have a nuclear weapon, they do not have the intercontinental ballistic missile system capable of delivering that payload to the United States.
Yeah.
Iran was only ever a threat to Israel, and because Israel has such control over the United States government, that is why we are attacking Iran at this point in time. So I was not surprised because we had such a massive military buildup in the region
Yeah.
for the last several weeks. 1/3 of our entire military is over there. The USS Lincoln is docked 800 kilometers off the coast of Iran. The USS Gerald Ford is docked off of Haifa, Israel.
Yeah.
And the only reason you put your premier um,
Battleship
aircraft
group. Yeah.
carrier,
Yeah.
yeah, next to Israel is because you know that once a strike happens, Iran is going to attack Israel. And so we
Yeah.
are spending all of our billions of dollars. We're depleting all of our munitions, for Israel. And so
Yeah.
heartbreak was my response to seeing that.
So the election's 2 weeks away. The primary election's 2 weeks away.
Yes.
What's campaigning been like? How have you been campaigning? And I guess, and then after that, if you want to answer this question, there's a bunch of kind of progressive Democrats, like you described, who are emerging in the Chicago area. Are you guys collaborate? Like Kat Abu Ghazala is one of them, I think. Are you guys collaborating? Are you guys coordinating? Is there joint fundraising? Is there joint meetings and so on?
Yeah, I'm collaborating with a lot of great candidates across the state of Illinois, especially in the Chicagoland area. Unfortunately, I haven't been able to connect with Kat just yet. She's doing great over there in the ninth. I have been able to connect with Bushra Amawala, who's also running in the
Mm,
ninth. She's also a great candidate. Keena Collins in the seventh, Morgan Coghill in the 10th, Junaid Ahmed in the eighth, and Dylan Blaha in the 13th. And I'm sure I'm forgetting some others. But I mean, also local candidates. We do joint canvases. Like we had two this
mm,
past weekend, one on Saturday, one on Sunday. It was me and three other candidates. One of them was running for DuPage County Board. One of them was running for state representative. One of them is running for U.S. Senate. So all of us had overlapping territory, and we had volunteers knocking doors with all four pieces of our literature wrapped up together, trying to get people to vote for this what we are calling the New Guard Democrats. And
Mm.
campaigning has been really great. Honestly, we started so late. We started in early October, late September, which is extremely late for a congressional run, especially for a first-time candidate with no major donor backing. We had to just hit the ground running. And this has been a campaign that is volunteer-driven. It is truly grassroots. I mean, I'm so humbled and grateful for all of the hard work that so many people have dedicated to this campaign. It's not me, it's we, just like Bernie says. And it's true. We've had over 150 people sign up to volunteer. We have 45, 47 people every day phone banking, making phone calls. We've made over 100,000 phone calls. We've knocked on over
Wow.
45,000
And
doors.
that's for multiple candidates at the same time. Like when you call,
No, so this is just our
wow, just for you, just for
yeah.
Joey.
So
Cool.
yeah, yeah. I know. It's really cool. So many people, even outside of the district, outside of the state, are seeing our stuff on social media and they're
Mm.
sending us messages. Hey, I'd love to help. I can't, I'm strapped for cash, but I can donate my time.
Yeah.
And we're like, thank you. We'd love it. You can make phone
Yeah.
calls for us. You can send text messages. You can write postcards. And there is such a desire for change amongst the American people, amongst the electorate. We just have to put the great candidates that are available in front of them to see them. And that's been the biggest hurdle for us is we do not have a problem convincing people to vote for me. The problem is just getting in front of enough people.
Yeah.
So we've tried to do this is a very heavily word of mouth campaign, and that's the best advertising you can get is a trusted individual telling their friends and family about you as a candidate and pushing them to go to the polls, being willing to drive them to the polls. We
That
have
that
so many individuals. Yeah.
Huh. That's the thing I wanted to ask about, actually. Just it's not only a midterm although it's a very important midterm election. It is a midterm election, and historically turnout has been rather low. But it's also just a primary. Um, are you able to convey to the voters when you're canvassing, when you're at meetings, when you're at town halls, I imagine, are you able to convey to them the importance of actually voting in the primary versus the I mean, old school Democrats understand that in the
Yeah.
machine politics kind of sense, but like, are you able to convince new voters that it's actually important to vote? It's perhaps more important to vote in March than in November when it comes to congressional seats.
Yeah, that's definitely a part of the education that we do with voters is telling them that the real change happens in the primaries, and people are understanding that. What we're finding is that there is so much organic desire to organize around political issues that are happening, and then we can go to those meetings or gatherings and then talk to them about the electoral process and how to get involved that way. So, for example, we went to St. Barnabas Church on the south side of Chicago, and they had a religious group meeting about ICE because so many people
Hmm.
were worried about ICE coming back to Chicago before the midterm elections, and they wanted to prepare and take the rapid response training and see how they could help, right? It was they're seeing everything happening on the news, but there's no outlet to try to help and contribute. So this organization formed. They previously had this organization. It died off for a couple years, and then it came back now. And so we went to this meeting, and I'm saying, hey, this is all great. We can help in the immediate term, but if we really want to dissolve ICE, if we want any type of structural change, we need to elect individuals that are coming to these types of meetings, talking to you, have the same sentiments, and are really motivated to push for change within the Democratic Party. Because we see right now, Hakeem Jeffries and Chuck Schumer are not willing to use the leverage that they have to do anything with ICE. They could have shut down the entire United States government and demanded reform or dissolution of ICE, but they did neither of those things. They immediately gave up all of their leverage and said, okay, we're only going to shut down the funding for DHS. Well, that's not convincing, right? That's not strong. That is not a strength position to take. That is a weakness position because you're giving up all your leverage right away. And then, of course, they just don't have these convictions. They really don't believe in it. So if we can elect people that believe in these things, then we can have real change and lasting change so that we don't have to constantly organize as a community to put out fires because of the political failures of our current leadership.
What do you think of Sean Casten? I mean, I will reach out to him to get a comment. I don't really have any intention of inviting him to a podcast. I don't know if he would even accept. And I was charmed that you did so quickly and so enthusiastically. But what is your critique? What is your respectful critique of him?
Okay, yeah, respectful critique. I no, truly, I have nothing against Sean Casten as a person, as a man. My critiques are only on his legislative record. Number one is the fact that he represents the largest group of Palestinian Americans than any other congressman or congresswoman in the entire United States, and yet he stands next to the country slaughtering their family. That is unacceptable.
How does he stand next to them?
He signs onto bills that send more money and weapons to Israel during the last 2.5 years. He votes yes when the question comes up, should we, the United States, send our tax dollars and our weapons to Israel? And he's absolutely aware and is getting the information of the slaughter that is happening, because how could you not? It's available for everybody to see. Plus, congressmen and women are privy to even more classified information than the public. So, of course, he's aware of what's happening, and yet he continued to send money and weapons to Israel with no conditions, with no statements condemning any of their actions, constantly defending their actions as moral and just and necessary.
Has he vocally defended them? Is he one of those congressmen who takes those Hasbara trips to Israel?
Absolutely. Before he was even sworn into office, he was elected in November of 2018. And in December of 2018, he took his first trip to Israel before he was even sworn into office. So he is constantly repeating the Hasbara lines of Israel has a right to defend itself. It's the only democracy in the Middle East. They're our closest ally. They're the most moral and just army. I mean, literally just regurgitating these lies constantly.
Yeah, we talked about foreign policy. You mentioned ICE. I wanted to ask about that issue and how you feel, as a progressive, how you deal with that issue of illegal immigration, undocumented immigrants. There seems to be a kind of consensus building that, even among Democrats, that, maybe we should close off the spigot of immigration. Maybe mass immigration is not such a great thing. It maybe affects the economy in a way that benefits the owner class versus the working class, and so on. And there's all sorts of arguments. How do you grapple with that issue? How do you put balance? What's your idea of a humane immigration policy, especially given like the number of Latinos, Arabs, et cetera, in that district, as well as old school WASPy and Catholic folks who've been around for a long time?
So really quick, I will answer that, but just to finish the full critique of Casten, it's not just his support for Israel. It's the fact that he sits on the Financial Services Committee, which is supposed to regulate Wall Street and private equity, but he accepts over $500,000 in donations to his campaign every election cycle from Wall Street and from private equity.
Like
BlackRock, one of the
BlackRock,
BlackRock, one of the most infamous private equity firms, their PAC maxes out to Sean Casten every election cycle. CME Group, which is a crypto lobbying group, maxes out to Casten every cycle.
Or crypto
has
bros
significant
too.
donations. Absolutely. And so additionally, Casten sits on the Energy Commission, and he violated the Stock Act. He broke the law by investing $300,000 into his father's energy company called Carbon, and he failed to disclose that for over a year, which violates the Stock Act. And he refuses to sign on to the resolution put forth to ban members of Congress from trading stock while in office. He will not co-sponsor that
And
legislation.
that's an 80% issue. I think
It's an
80% of
80%
Americans. Yeah,
issue.
yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. So it's just our voices are not being represented in office. He is only in there to enrich himself and enrich his family and maintain some power. Uh, and so to that effect, he is absent from the community while we are dealing with things like ICE. The Broadview Detention Center is less than 10 minutes, 15 minutes away from the district. Representative Casten has refused to use his legislative power or his power as a congressman to provide oversight at those facilities, at specifically the Broadview ICE facility. There was a group of Congress people, Representative Danny Davis, Representative Delia Ramirez, Representative Chuy Garcia, all together went to Broadview to try to provide oversight. They were denied, but at least they made the effort. They invited Representative Casten because one of his former supporters asked him why he was not going there with them. And he said, oh, there was a scheduling conflict. How convenient. There's been a scheduling conflict for months, I suppose, because he has not gone there before or since. So this is what I'm talking about. He is the only one with the power to provide oversight of these facilities, and he is refusing to use that power to try to help his constituents. Whereas when I get into Congress, I'm going to push for the dissolution of ICE, complete defunding of the program. I would even go so far as to say the entire Department of Homeland Security is a redundant agency and needs to be rolled back into other existing agencies. Immigration should go back under the Department of Justice like it was before. There's no reason to have a completely separate institution for this, especially after the way that ICE has been acting. I do not believe that this organization can be reformed. At some point, you have to recognize the rot is too deep. And these individuals that have been hired, they're given 47 days of training and given assault rifles and full tactical gear and absolute impunity to wreak havoc on American cities. So I don't think they can be reformed. I think it needs to be dissolved. As far as like a full immigration reform policy goes, first and foremost, we have to give full citizenship to DACA recipients. These are the deferred action childhood arrival individuals who were brought to the United States as children through no fault or choice of their own. They arrived in America as children illegally, and have lived their entire lives in America. They are working in America. They speak English. They go to school here. They contribute positively to the society. They should be given citizenship right away. No waiting process, just rubber stamp it. Next, we need to go into the visa program and the applications for citizenship. I do recognize that, the open border policy was disastrous for the United States and the Democratic Party specifically. And so, no, I don't want completely open borders. I think that we need to have, some level of restriction with knowing who is coming into the country, right? I know that my grandfather came into this country through Ellis Island. I was very lucky to find his signature on the books, which is incredible.
Wow.
And the quote on the Statue of Liberty is something that runs through my head all the time. Give me your sick, your poor, your tired masses yearning to breathe free. That's the spirit of America. So no, we don't only want to take the cream of the crop. Of course, we can as the premier country in the world, but we also need to recognize that refugees exist because of military intervention all over the world and destabilization. Asylum seekers. So we need to massively invest in judges to provide these, because right now we have like a 3 to 5 year waiting period. So there's so many issues with immigration that we need to reform. And I've sat down and spoken to excellent immigration attorneys, some of whom have endorsed me because they're also elected officials or precinct committee people. And we're going to work on pushing forth a real immigration reform policy, because what we have right now is just a web of knots. And certainly Casten is not interested in doing anything about it, and most Democrats aren't. And that's the problem, is even when Democrats have power, we don't deliver. We had power 2020 to 2022. We didn't raise the minimum wage.
No.
We didn't pass the PRO Act. We didn't codify Roe into
They
law.
they give a lot of
Nothing.
handouts to chip companies, to microchip
Exactly.
companies. So
Exactly.
let me ask you this: how is the horse race going, so to speak? Has there been any polling? Have you and Mr. Congressman Caston had any debates? Is there any internal polling or that you can disclose? What do you think are the chances of? I guess it would be a real upset for you to beat an incumbent who's been there for 8 years.
Yeah, it would. It's David versus Goliath, but the way that we're talking about it is when boxing champions and MMA champions don't take their opponent seriously, that's when they get knocked out.
Yeah.
And that's exactly what we're doing now. Casten is not campaigning. He has $1.2 million cash on hand, and he's not spending any of it. He's not running ads. He's not putting signs out.
Wow.
He puts them at the polling places, but he's not taking me seriously. And I understand, he did not face a serious primary challenge 2 years ago. The last person he faced that was serious was Marie Newman when they redrew the districts, and two incumbent Congress people had to face off. But, we are
Have you had
very
any
confident.
debates? Have you ever met him?
We've had online forums,
Uh-huh.
one of which, so this is the problem, is we've tried to have debates, but the political organizations are first of all very favorable to Casten. There is an
Yeah.
establishment at the local level too, and they love Casten. So they don't want to put on a debate because I did very well in the online forum, and he
Mhm.
looked weak and spoke softly and was reading off the screen and pontificating and quoting the founding fathers, and it
Ah,
looked really bad. So, they know that it's going to look bad for him in person too. And also, Casten has been disrupted constantly. He's had town halls that
sure.
Palestinian Americans go to, and they shut it down because he refuses to meet with them. He refuses to speak with them and talk to them. So the only thing they have left to do is meet him in person. And so all of these political organizations that we have asked to put on an in-person debate say, oh, we're afraid it's going to get disrupted, and we
Ah,
would rather have it be virtual, because it's easier. And so we've only had two. We're trying to put another one together. We are going to be together in person at in Beverly, Chicago, or Beverly, Illinois. There's an
sure.
organization called Politics and Coffee on March
Yeah.
10th. They're going to be hosting a candidate introduction night, and I'm going to have 5 to 6 minutes to speak and then 5 minutes for answering questions. But it is not a debate. It's just going to be me going up there doing 10 minutes and then Casten going up and doing 10 minutes, or vice versa. So it's unfortunate. I know I would destroy him in a debate, but yeah, they don't want it to happen.
It's about turnout. It's going to be about turnout. It's going to be about who can get who to the polls
Yeah.
on that day. Who's
So
enthusiastic? Yeah.
Yeah, so on the polling, we don't have any internal polling. We're not spending our money on that,
Yeah.
because I don't believe in polls. I'm not a poll jockey. I don't believe polls are accurate either. Joe
Yeah.
Crowley released a poll 2 weeks before
Especially in
the
primaries.
election.
I agree with you.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Yeah, Crowley released a poll when he was being challenged by AOC that showed him up almost like 30% 2 weeks before the election, and he lost by 15 points.
Yeah.
So we were doing so much on the ground work. Like this morning, and every morning we are at train stations from 6 a.m. to 9 a.m. handing out
Wow.
cards, giving out free coffee. I got a megaphone, and I'm screaming when people are getting on the train. Joey, the number four, Congress.com. We're
Yeah.
putting yard signs up all over the entire district. We've ordered thousands of them. They get taken down, but we just put them right back up. We're going to every mosque in the district on Fridays,
Hmm.
every church on Sundays, hospitals on the weekends, while we canvass the neighborhood doing door knocking. We're everywhere. So people know.
Yeah.
I'm being denied access to different political organization's monthly meetings because the leadership is
Wow.
very close to Casten. And I've been told by my friends who are members of those organizations who are like lower on the hierarchical ladder that they know about me and I'm a pain in their butt. So that means something's going on. There's something permeating, and I think we're gonna shock everybody on March 17th. I know we're gonna win because we've been putting in the work. And again, I think we've crossed the minimum threshold for fundraising to be
Yeah.
able to send out mailers, yard signs, postage, all of that.
Where's the money? Where's the fundraising coming from? Who are the donors? Small donors, big donors? Any
Yeah.
interesting kind of trends that you've spotted?
No, definitely very heavily MENA, so like Middle Eastern, North African, which I've been
Voters?
told people hate being called that. So like
Yeah.
definitely the Arab community has contributed a lot, but also, the Irish community is big on the South Side. They've contributed. It's all small
Sure.
dollar donations. It's
Yeah, because I bet
individuals.
that
I accept.
I bet some people see Sean from Downers Grove as somewhat of a snob, especially
Big
because the
time.
district includes both the bougie suburbs and the more working class parts of the city. I bet you can work on
Yeah.
that as well.
Yeah, yeah, that's what we're doing. So, Caston has his wealthy donors in Downers Grove and Glen Ellen, but we've
Do
been
you
to
door
Glen
knock
Ellen too.
there
And
as well?
oh
Yeah,
yeah,
yeah, yeah, I
oh yeah,
bet.
and we're putting our signs up too. So Sean Caston's neighbor messaged us and said, "Hey, I live right next door to Sean. Please give me a yard sign." And
Wow,
I
cool.
love that. So
That's
he
great.
is way too confident, and like I said, we're gonna shock the world on March 17th.
Well, great. Well, and with that, I just wanted to thank you so much for giving me your time. I thought this was so valuable.
Of
And
course, thank
I
you.
wanted to just say again, this has been an interview with Joey Rzevich. He is a candidate for Congress in the Chicago suburbs as well as parts of the city. It's a very interesting part. I did not know that the district that he is running in is the most heavily Palestinian community district in the U.S. And it's been a
Yep.
charming interview. How tall are you? Because I'm what's your height as a basketball
I'm
player?
I'm 6'4" without shoes,
Wow,
6'5" with shoes.
nice,
Yeah.
nice,
It
great,
helps. My dad is
yeah.
6'6" though.
Oh
And I'm
wow,
still shorter than him, but it's all right.
cool. Well, it's been a pleasure. I'm Borzu Deragahi. This is the Badlands podcast, a special interview today. And thank you for listening in. Please subscribe. It's at Borzou, BORZOU.substack.com. Thank you so much.